back over my life, I couldn't see how I made it through. But then I finally realized it was all because of you. So I gave him my life for a ride with Christ to be transformed and be renewed. This is my story, my testimony, how I sold out, yeah. Sold out, sold out, sold out, sold out.
I am Frances J. Hardy, and this is my story. And I am completely sold out for Jesus. Hi, I'm Frances Hardy, and I was born in Kansas City, Kansas, and my parents is James and Dolores Washington. I was raised in Kansas City, Missouri, on 42nd and South Benton, and I tell you, I had a wonderful childhood back then. We played in the streets. Although we had a park right down the street from us on the corner, we chose to play in the middle of the streets. And I would say my childhood was a normal childhood. It was pretty good. We had fun. We knew how to have fun. We knew how to play. It wasn't these technologies of the phone and tablets and all that the kids have nowadays. But we knew how to be creative and get out there and play. We played baseball in the middle of the streets. And I remember as we were growing up, Mom would tell us, all right now, I want you on the porch when the street lights come on. And we said, street lights, oh man. Those street lights come on, you wouldn't believe it or not. It wasn't just our family, it was almost the whole block. All the kids on the block had to be at home. It wasn't sitting down on the lower steps. It was, when they said the porch, it was be on the porch. And we talked to each other still, just from the porch. We still had fun being outside, being kids. And I mean, boy, thinking back then, I'm telling you, I wish the kids knew how to really play outside right now. It was just so much fun and energy. And you're talking about sleeping well, we slept well, but the next morning, we had kids at the house at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, knock, knock, knock. Can Nene come out? On Sunday mornings, you know, we got up, we went to church. We traveled all the way over into Kansas. We grew up at Greystone Heights Missionary Baptist Church. And I could always remember on Sunday mornings, if nobody wanted to go, I always wanted to go to church with Daddy. I always wanted to go. And the memories of those days being in the youth choir and going to Sunday school, yeah, we played church a lot, but it was fun in going to church because we knew afterwards we was gonna be at Grandma's house. Whether we ate or not, but Grandma's house always smelled the same. Cornbread and greens. Very seldom did I see meat. But that was my start of growing up in church and learning about, you know, Christ. Still today, I'm still learning, but those were the days. Those are the days that, you know, you really, truly, church was fun. And as I grew up, I into my teenage years, I still played a lot of football with the little boys. Remember Mama asking where I was and told me that I needed to come home and that I was getting too old to be playing football with the boys. And that kind of tore at my heart because I just loved playing football. And it wasn't just touch football, we literally tackled like boys. And back then we didn't think about being little girls, prissy and all. We played with our dolls, true enough, but it wasn't about being prissy. It was just all about being fun. And as I grew up, I got a little bit more reserved, got a little bit more conservative, got into high school, and that's when my life really started changing. Is when I got into high school, started hanging around with girls that I thought were my friends, lied a lot. They, wanted to be in that in crowd, and turned around, they weren't really my friends. Coming up in those days, we didn't look at it as being blessed. We just looked at it that we was being lucky, and that we had good parents and taught us well. But I remember a time in school, in my high school years, and this is always very, very touching to me. It was my junior year in high school. I had messed up in my freshman year, but still had enough credits to make it to the next year. If you look back at it and you laugh, I had a grade card that, my final grade card was, back then we had I's, E's, was it E, S, M, I, and F. Nowadays it's A, B, C, D, and F. I brought home a grade card that was nothing but F's and one I. And I showed it to my parents, and people said, "Are you serious?" I said, "Yes." I showed that grade card to my parents, and not knowing I was going to make it to the next grade, then I guess I really didn't care. I did what I did. I was mischievous, and I just didn't do my work. I didn't go to class. Would leave school, what we call play hooky, and those grades showed what I did. The I believe, was in my math class, which I showed up in there because he was a friend of the family's. But after that point, in my sophomore year, when I tried to do the same thing, I remember my dad telling me, "That's okay. You don't want to go to school? I'll know where you're at." And he removed me from school. And I felt like I was on punishment for ages. I had to sit in a den. We called it the den. And I had to sit in there. I couldn't answer the phone. When I walked out, I couldn't look at TV. I couldn't do anything but sit in that room because I didn't go to school. And I was 14 years old when I got my last whipping. It was during that time. He says, "Where were you?" I said, "I was on the fire escape," and he showed enough fire escape my behind. And I knew I was gonna get it. And I tried to put on 5 layers of clothing, but that strap still went through those clothing. But it taught me a lesson then that I knew that I needed to get myself together and go to class and make it out of high school. And my junior year, we had an awards night. I was always my dad's little girl, but I never cherished that time of being his little girl until that night. My name was called multiple times for awards, and I got the award of the most improved student. And when I walked back to my seat and I looked at my daddy, and I said, I saw it then that I was once again his little girl. And that will always stay with me, because as I got out of school, went through my senior year, I could have graduated 4th of my class. But I didn't get to take those honors because of the choices that I made in my freshman and sophomore year. But the one honor that I did have, and I took, was that I was my daddy's little girl again. And a lot of times, we don't say much about Mama. Mama played a big integral part of that, because at the age of 16, she became my best friend, and is still my best friend. But for some reason, I just always remember Daddy. When you got that look from Daddy, something just tore at me. And I went on to college, and all of my English papers that I had to write was based on my experience that I had in my life and how my parents and my dad influenced me. It was so fulfilling to be able to do that and then to share my papers with him before he passed away. Those days stayed with me. They stayed with me. And although I was going to church every Sunday, I never really fully, I'll say not never really, but I did not fully accept Christ into my life. I played around. I played church. I got married. I had a daughter before I got married, but we got married when she was 2 years old. And after that, we had a son. So my kids are now 44 and 37. And I'm glad to say that, you know, they're in the Lord. During that time in my first marriage, before I even got married, I dabbled, I got high. Every Friday we called it gin night. We had friends over playing dominoes and, you know, we just drinking and smoking weed, just getting high, just enjoying life, just enjoying ourselves. And that's pretty much what I did. And then Sunday morning, I get up and I go to church as though nothing happened. I wasn't much of a clubber, but I went every once in a while, get up Sunday morning, go to church as though nothing was happening. Just playing church because I didn't feel like I didn't see any consequence in what I was doing. I didn't see any of the what I was doing, how it was affecting or impacting my children. Until one day, we were in the car and I, went to smoke a joint. We called them joints back then. And my daughter whispered to me from the back seat and said, "Mama, you know you shouldn't be doing that." I tell you what a conviction that was for your little one to tell you you shouldn't be doing that. That started a change in my life. And really professing and wanting to know God and what He was doing in my life. Back then I couldn't tell you that that's what, He was doing it. Even though He was, I didn't realize that. But for it to work on my children, my son didn't have a whole lot to say, but my daughter was very boisterous. And that put a calming in my heart that I need to start doing the right thing around my kids. If I'm going to tell them something that's not right or doing it, I got to be that example to do it. My mom and my dad was always the example in my life, and that was one thing I started praying, is that to let me be an example in my kids' life that my parents were in mine. And God started working that out. And that was the start of me being an example when my daughter told me, "Mama, you shouldn't be doing that." I thought I'm just relaxing. I had a long day, I'm just relaxing. It wasn't the right thing to do. Then later on, my first husband really got a little bit heavier into the drug scene, and I tried to keep it out of my home until one night, I decided, I'm gonna try it. And that night, I had an outer body experience. Literally. I felt like I was floating in the air and I was watching myself. Give it to me, give it to me, give it to me, give it to me, give it to me. And it was not a scene that I liked. And that was the first and the last time that I ever tried cocaine, crack. I'm gonna say it like it is. It was crack. That's the first and the last time that I ever tried it, because that was not a life that I wanted. And that point, I ended up going to rehab meetings and all with my husband, because he was in rehab, and I would attend the meetings. And my daughter would go with me because she was old enough to know the difference. And someone said something to her. And we had to be separated from the group. And that young lady was banned from that group. So nothing could transpire. But I started seeing a whole transition in my life after that. And I believe that was back in 88, 87, 88. And that's when I became a member at, it was called Evangelistic Church of Jesus Christ. And then later on it became Apostolic Church of Jesus Christ. I became a member there. And I started seeking. I strived to change my life around and not do the things that I had been doing in the past. And I tell you, when I started doing that, my life did get better. It wasn't saying that I had a bad life, but I saw things turn around, things get a little bit better. Times when I didn't think that I had money, or where was I going to get this money from, because it was being taken to go to the other side, to the drug side. But I still made a way for me and my kids to live. And when I went to church, and really honestly went to church and became an usher, started working in the church, that's when things, where I was like, man, how am I doing this? How am I making this work? How am I keeping my lights on? How am I keeping my gas and stuff on? I'm going to work every day, but yet still, my account is becoming overdrawn, because no sooner the money gets in the bank, he's taking it out. But we made it happen. Back then, did I say it was God doing it? No. But when I look back from where I am now, I can say, yes, look what God did. Look what God did. I try not to lean on my parents, because I felt like that I was an adult. But if I ever needed them, they were always there for me. And that's why I always prayed to be that example and to be there for my kids when they need me, because it was never a time that I didn't call on my parents, that they weren't there. And I continued to go to church, and I would take my kids to church and try to, get them in Sunday school so they can know more about God. I still wasn't able to teach them myself or talk to them myself, because I still was not in the Word. I was not reading. I was just going to church and I was listening. I had my Bible. I would read along. But as far as reading on my own, I was not doing that. So as I got older, I got wiser. And I still tried to bring my kids into the church and raising them. But I was very faithful to Apostolic Church of Jesus Christ. Became the head usher there. I stayed even when the pastors resigned. But I had told, in between time, I had remarried, And my husband, Howard, he was a worker, and he would always sign up for work on Sundays, and I would always say, hey, you know what, give God his purpose. You know, why are you signing up for overtime on Sundays, and you could be going to church? And at that point, it was like I was pushing him. I was pushing him to come to church, come to church, come to church, come to church. So I had to back off and just continue to go myself, because I was taught and I was told a virtuous wife, a sanctified wife will sanctify the husband, and he will come in time. So just don't be, pushing and arguing the fact. And when I calmed down and stopped arguing, again, things got better. And when I left Apostolic Church, I had prayed to God and I said, Lord, I do not want to join another church without my husband, without him being with me. And I probably kind of got ahead of myself of how I really got into church, but I just to kind of reiterate, when I had that outer body experience, that's what turned me completely around to get back and really to learn God. It's that outer body experience. And I have to say that was the best decision that I made, was to leave that type of lifestyle and to live a lifestyle to where I can be proud of, and that my children and family would be proud of. And a lot of this, and I am saying now, a lot of my family members don't know. They did not know this about me. Because I kept it under wraps. And I felt like my story didn't mean anything until I listened to other people's story. And I shared it at the rehab, and one of the coaches said, you have a story to tell. People need to hear your story. But I still never told it. So I just kept going in life. And I kind of try to push that type of life back behind me as though I never even touched it. I never did those things. And I didn't think about how it would help someone else. So I just pushed it back. And as I got into church even more, and when my husband retired back in 2011, we became members of Macedonia Baptist Church. It took a few times in going, and I was kind of anxious, but I had to settle myself down. And he just touched my knee one time and said, hey, come on. And we became members in Macedonia. And I did not know that he knew the Lord the way that he did. I felt it, but I didn't know it. And when he passed 2 years ago, there was a part of me that really, really left, but we had wonderful times together. We rode horses, which was his love. People would ask me, where did that come from in you? I tapped into something that he loved, and I did it with him. And that was one of the best times with him, was riding horses. And now I'm still a member in Macedonia. I am a faithful usher. I am also a greeter. And loving every minute of it, and thanking God. Thanking him from where he brought me from to where I am now. I have not always been here. But there's times in my life that I could have been dead. I could have been gone. I could be some of those people that we see on the streets. I could have been homeless, having nothing, losing my kids. And God saw fit to turn me around. As the song says, He thought I was worth keeping. And He came and changed my life. He thought I was worth saving. And He cleaned me up inside. And He thought I was to die for. So He gave His life for me. Upright. He gave His life for me. He made me whole when I thought that I had to have those things, had to get high, had to do all of this stuff to come to be happy. I didn't need those things because He was here all the time. He was here. And I am so grateful. I'm so thankful that I can look out and now I can tell my story of where I came from. And it wasn't always pretty. It's not always pretty to say that you smoked weed all the time. It's not pretty to say that you've tried crack. And I can say that I'm a living testimony that you can get away from it. It was a one-night thing. I know there's a lot of people who have not walked away from it. But if you put your trust in God, He'll do it. Because He did it. He did it for me. And now I'm living a life of happiness. Not full of void. And I look at my family members, my nephews, my nieces, my cousins, and I see where a lot of them came from, and to see them worshiping God in church to where I didn't think that I would ever be there. I didn't think that they would ever be there. And that's where they are. It's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful feeling. And I am so ever grateful.
This is my story, my testimony, how I saw